Hi, my name is Ashley Kawasaki, and today for my quality of character presentation, I'll be talking about the trait teachable. So, what does it mean to be teachable? Well, if we turn to Google and the Merriam-Webster definition, we'll get something that looks like capable of being taught or apt and willing to learn. However, there are other definitions that can be equatable for teachable. For example, my definition is a willingness to learn and grow, or an openness to new ideas, new concepts, and new perspectives. A lot of synonyms that come up also when I think of the word teachable is coachable, trainable, receptive, or even amenable, which is of a person who is open and responsive to suggestions. I think being teachable is one of the most valuable traits a person can possess, and because they're willing to learn and grow. And being teachable is not just about acquiring new knowledge, but it's also about humility and openness and open to different perspectives. This quote that I found was super relatable. It states, "Stay teachable. You still have many things to learn. Humility honors God. It is not thinking less of yourself. Instead, it is thinking of yourself less. So seek purpose instead of perfection. Accept corrections, because a humble person knows that there is still so much to be learned from everyone and from every situation God does allow." Now, if we turn to the world of athletics, why would it be important to be teachable? At the core of being teachable is acknowledging that we're not always right. It takes humility to recognize that our understanding of the world is limited and that we can always learn something new. Being teachable means being open to feedback, even when it's super difficult to hear. It means setting aside our pride and our defensiveness to truly listen to what others have to say. And by doing so, we can gain valuable insights that can help us improve and become better versions of ourselves. Being teachable fosters a sense of curiosity and wonder about the world. It encourages us to ask questions, to seek out new experiences, and to challenge existing beliefs. In this way, being teachable is not just about passively receiving information, it's actively engaging with it to create positive change. So if we look now at one of my favorite movies, The Blind Side, there's two aspects to this scene that I want to show you guys. So if you don't know, The Blind Side is a movie that's based on a true story of a football star named Michael Orr and his life with the help of his adoptive family. And the movie is about how he overcomes great odds to graduate from college. He ends up to play in the NFL, and it's a story of great inspiration, resiliency, determination, natural talent, and just the impact that caring can truly have. So let's take a look at this clip. After watching that clip, you can see that Michael is struggling on the field to learn his defensive role as blocking. He's having trouble relating how he can block and his quarterback, right? So, but his coach feels that the best way to get back to explain to Michael how to be a better blocker is to become highly directive, very aggressive. The coach just gets up in his personal space and he ends up yelling at him, which is not a great way that athletes react to change or to even commentation. So instead, his adoptive mom, Leanne Toohey, intervenes. She understands football, she knows Michael's role in the team, and more importantly, she knows Michael as a human. She explains to him how his role in the team is to protect his quarterback in the same way that he protects his family. So she creates a link that Michael's family on the field is his team. She puts the message in this language and context that Michael can understand. After that scene, you see the Coach Cotton walk over to Leanne Toohey on the bench, and he says, "So what'd you tell her? So what'd you tell him?" And she says, "Coach, you need to get to know your players." So the challenge of understanding your players isn't just isolated with an example with Michael. It often spreads to other coaches, other fields. It's not just football. I see this in soccer a lot, and it's a top challenge. But this scene in The Blind Side is a great example of two versions of being teachable. So it's a coach being teachable, but it's also an athlete being teachable. So it's not just a coach being teachable to an athlete, but it's also the coach doesn't always have all the right answers, right? So the coach also needs to be teachable. They need to be adaptive. They need to learn different methods, different ways to engage with their athletes and mentor them. If we take a look at the Bible, in Proverbs 15:12, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. So from the Bible, it creates a teachable spirit. A teachable spirit allows for a deeper understanding of God's word and a closer relationship with him. Seeking knowledge and being open to learning leads to wisdom and understanding. A teachable spirit is rooted in humility, recognizing that we have much to learn. If we take a look now at a work aspect, we'll look at Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz is the former CEO of Starbucks. When he took over Starbucks in the early 2000s, the company was extremely successful. However, it was starting to face issues with store operations and declining customer experience. So Schultz demonstrated his teachability when he listened to his employees and he listened to his customers about what wasn't working with the entire Starbucks experience. So he took a step back to understand the culture and operations of the company. In 2008, there was a financial crisis, and Schultz closed down stores to retrain baristas on the art of making espresso and to focus on how Starbucks would interact with customers moving forward. He created a more inclusive and an employee-centered environment where training and feedback were valued. His ability to adapt and learn from various sources helped Starbucks regain its status as a global leader in coffee retail. Now, if we look at one of the books that we read this quarter, Teaching Character Through Sport, Bruce Brown quotes Lin Yutang and states, "Sometimes it is more important to discover what one cannot do than what one can do," in relation to a teachable spirit. So Brown goes on to explain there's two sides to this, right? There's the athlete and the non-athlete. And he uses these terms loosely. So it's somebody who is teachable versus somebody who is not teachable, right? So if you take an athlete's going to take correction as a compliment. They're going to show confidence and not feel scared or defensive if they're singled out by the coach for something to improve on. And when they are getting corrections from a coach, they're going to give verbal feedback and physical cues that they're listening and that they're learning. However, if we look at the other side, a non-athlete, they don't look as correction as an opportunity for growth. They're often extremely defensive. They're too self-important. They're too self-important to admit that they know that they're wrong, that they don't know everything, and they often make up a ton of excuses. So if we take a look at all those aspects, why is it important to be teachable? So it's important in life, in relationships, it's important in work, and it's important in sports and athletics. If we approach life with a teachable attitude, we open ourselves up to growth and transformation. And by embracing the fact that we're not always right, we create space for new ideas, experiences, opportunities to enter our lives. Bruce Brown had a great quote. He said, "Keep in mind that having a teachable spirit is a choice, not a skill." That means that we actively need to choose to be teachable every single time that we're in a situation. And that's how we need to carry this on throughout life. So we should strive to cultivate a spirit of openness, of humility, and curiosity as we journey through this life. After all, the more that we learn, the more that we grow. So stay curious, stay humble, and stay teachable. Thank you so much for your time.